Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything movies, TV, comics, and entertainment. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome for an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What is happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He is the co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to talk about in the land of movies, TV, and comics, and more. You are tuned into the entertainment edition of the ODPH, and we definitely want to keep the conversation rolling with you after the show, too. So make sure to swing on over to odphpodcast.com. Join in on the social media. You can find all our accounts there. Parlay points, new comics blogs dropping this week, the TeePublic store, so you can get some brand new swag for the holiday season. All of that and so much more is at odphpodcast.com. And always remember to use the hashtag ODPHpod on social media. Kicking off this edition of the show, we have to recap an event that happened over Cyber Monday.
It was more deadly than Black Friday, believe it or not.
You would have to think so, and we knew that there was going to be some hype in there. We have to give credit to Padawan J, too.
Told you so.
He did call it, but man, oh man, oh man, were we expecting what happened on Cyber Monday involving Spider-Man No Way Home?
I can say yes, because go back and listen to, I forget if it was a previous episode or the one before that, but I said, record shows that ticket sale, once these tickets go on sale, it's going to be as bad as some of the recent Star Wars films and Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. And I was right.
No, you're definitely right. I didn't think it was going to be as bad as Endgame. Endgame was a whole different animal. But No Way Home crashed every site you were trying to get tickets on when they decided to drop it at midnight on Cyber Monday.
12:01, but yeah, no.
To be specific, yeah.
Yeah, it dropped on 12:01 Monday morning, Cyber Monday, across the globe, which probably a bad idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, Fandango, Regal, AMC, like literally any movie theater chain that sells tickets online crashed, and I was following some people online who were detailing the headaches of getting it. One friend of mine was in a queue for one of his local theaters. He doesn't live in the area, and he had a wait time of like 35 minutes, something like that. He's like, oh, that's not that bad. And then it increased to, mind you, it's like 1 a.m. It was midnight, So he's like, oh, that's not too bad. And then it increased to 45 minutes. And then it increased to 56 minutes. And he went, yeah, fuck this. I'm going to bed.
Now, with that being said, obviously, it's going to be the hottest ticket in town in December.
People are selling it on eBay for like $25,000.
Which is insane.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sorry, I cannot endorse spending that much money on a movie ticket when you can wait a week after the hype goes down to just go at a normal price. I'm sorry, I can't condone it. If you want to spend that money and you got that money to spend, hey, do you. Me? Hell no. I'm already kind of fired up that it's a little more expensive than usual for tickets, in my humble opinion, to go Thursday night. But nevertheless, we'll be down there. The whole 607 podcast fam is going. But with that being said, Pat, do you think the expectations of this movie are really too high to hit?
I don't know. It's hard to say. Of course, we know that Sony, after, however many years, is finally getting their Sinister Six movie, that they've had an absolute hard-on for. Go back through the history and see the history of the Spider-Man films that didn't happen and what they wanted to do. They've wanted to do a Sinister Six movie. So, you're finally getting that. And then with the rumored, we got to say rumored because it hasn't been officially confirmed yet. We haven't seen them on screen. Rumored return of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. I expect the film to be great, just given the fact that you've got Spider-Man facing all of these villains. But I feel that if Tobey and Andrew aren't in this movie that we've gone on for so long, and I realize they've denied it, and I realize they haven't said, even Tom Holland has said they're not in it. So they're ultimately in a win great or they fail utterly situation where if they're in it, awesome. It's, it's a win for them. The fans are going to absolutely love it. But if they're not in it, I'm afraid that the blowback and the fan reaction to them not being in it is going to be such that the movie will be not necessarily a financial failure, but, just what people thought of it failure.
Well, you have to take this in perspective that with this much hype surrounding this movie, it has to deliver.
Mm-hmm.
Because for generating the ticket buzz that it did, and it literally shut down everything to kick off Cyber Monday.
It was bad enough that, I was following Brandon Davis from comicbook.com, who lives in the Nashville, Tennessee area.
Mm-hmm.
They got a fair number of theaters down in Nashville. And he was saying, I think he was looking on Fandango, it was acting like there were no theaters in Nashville, which I know is not the case.
Well, I know our guys down at ECA were having tough times getting in. I think everybody was, because everybody's expectations from what the MCU has done since it's come back from Avengers Endgame has just kept raising the bar.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about it from the beginning of this year when it was WandaVision.
Yeah.
And how everybody was blown away, and it captured mainstream fans. See, that's one thing that I don't think a lot of people are recognizing with this.
Mm-hmm.
With the success of the Disney Plus shows, there are a lot more eyes on the MCU and its properties than ever before. And I know that some people are going to do a double take when I say that, but think about it.
Yeah.
When Avengers Endgame hit, it shut down everything. Obviously, it's the biggest movie of the year.
Oh, yeah. Its pre-sale tickets were in the $42 to $43 million range. And reportedly, the Spider-Man No Way Home pre-sale tickets, the 42, 43 is just in the first 24 hours. Reportedly, No Way Home did 40 plus, because there's no exact numbers. There's a bunch of numbers floating around, but No Way Home is in the $40 plus million range for the first 24 hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely insane to think, but for the success that the MCU and Disney Plus shows have had, I mean, the only misfire, and it's debatable, but you know where we stand on that. You can go listen to an episode or two ago, is Eternals.
Yeah.
Everything else has been pretty much a win-win for them.
Mm-hmm.
So the bar is set so high, and let's face it, Spider-Man is one of the most popular, if not the most popular superhero in all of fandom.
Oh, yeah, and the Spider-Man films were popular way before he was in the MCU. I mean, just go look at the box office numbers.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
So there's already a lot, like even my sister, who isn't the biggest Marvel fan, isn't really the biggest MCU fan, she still enjoys seeing, the Spider-Man films. She's all enjoyed those over the years. So it's one of those films that, the MCU fans are going to turn out for, the comic book fans are going to turn out for, but you're going to get so much of the casual fan because Spider-Man is such a recognizable character.
Yeah, that's just something that they're going to have to dance with this movie, and they have to deliver on it. The hype has been built up so much that if this is a subpar movie,
mm-hmm.
the fans are the reaction by fans is going to be absolutely toxic, unfortunately. Because now you have set that bar so high, it's such a struggle to go get a ticket. The expectation level, it was already high to begin with, and now, come opening night, that has to deliver. You have to have a almost perfect film.
Mm-hmm.
It's absolutely crazy to think it's gotten to this point, but this is how much the MCU has now captured more fans and brought them in.
Yeah, no, and we already knew it was an anticipated film, but just the numbers and the tickets and all the ticket information is just really setting in stone, if you didn't already believe it, of just how anticipated this film was. Because, reading from an article on Deadline.com, it says, quote, while some in the industry are still trying to blame a lackluster box office on the pandemic, think again. Sony's Spider-Man No Way Home, in its first day of pre-sales yesterday on Fandango, saw its best day since 2019's Avengers Endgame. The pre-sales for Spider-Man No Way Home, which opens December 17th, outstripped the first day of advanced ticket sales of Black Widow in 2 hours' time.
Jesus.
That Disney Marvel movie previously owning the online ticket retailer's best record of 2021. The first day pre-sales for Spider-Man No Way Home are higher than those for pre-pandemic titles such as Infinity War, Spider-Man Far From Home, Star Wars The Last Jedi, Rogue One, and Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker.
That's insane. Trying to wrap my head around that. See, I figured Endgame would be its toughest competition.
It got close. From the rough numbers I've seen, Endgame in the first 24 hours was, like I said, $42 to $43 million. And No Way Home was in a little over 40.
I mean, it just goes to show about how many people are excited about this film.
Uh-huh.
And we all thought it was going to be big, but I don't even think Sony was expecting it to be this big.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take this with a grain of salt. You have to be obviously very, very happy with the numbers because you're going to make your budget back and then some.
Yeah,
easily after the first week.
The Deadline article even quotes a gentleman by the name of Rick Roman, who they say is the beamed Kentucky exhibitor. He spoke about his pre-sales for Spider-Man No Way Home, saying, quote, "I have not seen anything like this since Star Wars The Force Awakens. Once the tickets went on sale, they went through the roof. I added more screens. Thank you, Sony."
Yeah. I mean, how wild.
It's insane.
It's absolutely crazy to see. And so now the countdown is on. You're not going to see another trailer get released. You're not going to see anything else.
I know there's speculation, but you're just not going to see it.
It's not going to happen, and nor should they. I think that would be such a letdown if they decided to do it. You've already given us enough, and they actually did not Sony the trailer.
Yes.
We don't really know exactly everything to the movie, which, I mean, they've had a history where they've done it, where it's come out. Spade is a spade, folks, in our opinions.
Uh-huh.
But now we have enough to go on into the theaters. There's genuine excitement going on. And then they decided to tag on an announcement too, Pat.
Yeah, so it was announced by, I believe it was Amy Pascal, that they're going to, once this film is wrapped up and done, they're going to do another trilogy with Tom Holland down the road.
See, now that is very interesting that they've said Tom Holland will be a part of another trilogy.
Yeah, so the quote directly is, this was in an interview with Fandango. She said, "This is not the last movie that we are going to make with Marvel. This is not the last Spider-Man movie." Well, duh, because the rights go back. Rights go back if they don't.
Yeah.
We are getting ready to make the next Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland and Marvel. We're thinking of this as 3 films, and now we're going to go on to the next 3. This is not the last of our MCU movies. Yes, Marvel and Sony are going to keep going together as partners, close quote.
Okay, so initial takes on this. 1, smart move by Sony.
Yeah, say no shit.
Yeah, this is probably the best thing they could do because let's face it, they have had a very unique relationship with their Spider-Man films in the audience.
Say mixed results,
Yes.
in terms of the box office. Obviously, the first 2 did very well. Third one, so-so in terms of box office sales.
Right.
Amazing Spider-Man, first one did, okay, nothing fantastic. And then the second one was just an absolute bomb. And I remember that very distinctly. Sony screaming from the mountaintops that movie was going to make $1 billion, and it never did.
Right.
And then they finally saw the light, did the deal with Marvel, and put him in the MCU, and it's been dollar signs ever since.
Well, you have to take in perspective, too. When they got the rights, Marvel was not in the best place financially that they were.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why everybody's, rights went to every different theaters and such. It's a whole time period. You can go research it yourselves. The 90s is a very weird time for Marvel.
There might be a documentary about it someplace.
Yeah. I think if not, somebody really needs to make one because some of those decisions, in my opinion, whew. But when they started coming out with their own franchise, and they had the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, which were fantastic. The first 2 are some of the best superhero films you'll ever see.
Yeah.
With Tobey Maguire playing the lead role. They really hit the mark. They really captured the essence of Spider-Man, who had been basically in film purgatory. We never thought we were going to see this movie. James Cameron was tagged to it at one point.
Oh, interesting.
And then it never came to fruition. But there was so many people that were getting tagged and left and right. So when we finally got the movie, it hit, and everybody got so excited, and it was a box office smash. The sequel is even better.
Oh, yeah.
With Alfred Molina playing Dr. Octopus as his main rival. The third film, though, is when everything fell apart. And you can point X, Y, and Z. Let's face it, when you try cramming in too many villains and too many characters and not giving them enough time to flesh out a story, it never works. It still doesn't to this day.
Well, it depends on who you got making the film, and Marvel has proven they can do it, but Sony, not so
right,
much.
But the benchmark was already set because when they tried doing it with Topher Grace's Venom and Sandman and just how all over the place that film was.
Yeah.
It just didn't connect. So, I mean, when the franchise had to reboot and they went to Andrew Garfield, they tried modernizing it a little bit.
Well, they didn't necessarily have to reboot. Their hand got forced. Because Raimi, I forget who Raimi wanted to do certain villains. I forget who they were.
I thought it was a Lizard.
Yeah, I think it was Lizard. We could be wrong. It's been over 15 years.
Yeah.
Raimi wanted to do Lizard, I believe. The studio wanted to go and do Vulture.
Yes.
He wanted to do Vulture. They wouldn't agree, so Raimi walked, and in turn, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst both said, if Raimi's not doing it, we're not doing it. And so they decided, all right, fine, we'll just reboot.
Yeah, and the Andrew Garfield met with a lot of mixed reactions.
Yeah.
I personally am not a fan.
First one's okay.
First one is tolerable to a degree, in my opinion.
Second one is awful, and I maintain I have not seen that movie even when it's on TV. Have not seen that movie since I saw it in theaters, and I own it.
Yeah, I can't pull myself to even buy them. I skip them on rewatches. I just can't. It's not that Andrew Garfield was awful. He did a great Spider-Man.
Yeah, he was Tobey Maguire was a great Peter.
Yeah.
Andrew Garfield was a great Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Tom Holland is the best of both.
Yeah, he's the perfect mix of both. And when he came in to do Homecoming, that's when the bar was really set. Obviously, when he came into Civil War, MCU fans finally got the franchise player involved. Mm-hmm. And that changed the dynamic. If you really want to take it back, Iron Man was the catalyst to get the MCU going, obviously. Yeah. And if that movie bombed, we never would have had an MCU.
Facts.
But once we got Spider-Man in the MCU, Civil War changed the game for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And you can try saying otherwise, but let's face it. Once we finally saw Spider-Man with Captain America and Iron Man, everything changed. And then once he got more involved in the MCU, the idea of we now have a shared universe finally really brought people in.
And then we almost lost it because the two sides couldn't agree. There was a story that came out within the last couple of months. They were in the middle of filming.
Yeah.
No Way Home or Far From Home, whatever. Far From Home.
Far From Home.
Sorry, there are way too many homes in this trilogy.
This is true.
You know, they were in the middle of filming Far From Home, and then you had the kerfuffle with the potential split from Marvel and / Disney and Sony, where Sony was going to take their ball home and pout, you know, but then you had Tom Holland's drunken call to Bob Iger at whatever time it was that saved the franchise.
This is true. If you don't realize of how much Tom Holland loves his character and loves the MCU, go back and research his Hail Mary pass that he made to Bob Iger.
Bob Iger has said this himself. Tom Holland drunkenly called him in one night and begged him, you know, to not let Spider-Man leave the MCU.
Yeah, he's smart about this because he knew the potential with this character and how much it was going to mean to fans. And obviously, when we heard that Sony was going to take their ball and go home again, it was not resonating with anybody.
We've seen your track record when you try things on your own. Outside, you know, I'll take the animated film out of this because I don't think this really counts in this.
Right, animated's a whole different entity in its own right.
But in terms of the, you know, live action films, if we're talking baseball averages, you've got 2 hits and 3 misses, so you're below 500 there.
Exactly. So when the thought of him leaving the MCU came into play, it scared fans.
Uh-huh.
I remember that episode we recorded. You can go back and hear the despair in our voice, like, this is really happening. Like, we finally got Spidey back in. Everybody was coming home, and now he's gone again. But Tom Holland wound up saving the day. Obviously, money heals a lot of wounds in Hollywood. Everybody got together. Everybody got paid. Far From Home blew up. And now we're coming into No Way Home. And now the announcement of more movies.
Yeah.
Which is great, except the only thing that scares me a little bit, to a degree, is if they're going to really try forcing Tom Holland to stay in the role.
Which he might not be on board with.
Right, because he said, and to paraphrase a little bit, if I'm still playing Spider-Man at 30, I've done something wrong.
Yeah, so I've got the quote. This was in an interview he did with GQ earlier this month. Quote, maybe it is time for me to move on. Maybe what's best for Spider-Man is that they do a Miles Morales film. I have to take Peter Parker into account as well because he is an important part of my life. If I'm playing Spider-Man after I'm 30, I've done something wrong, close quote.
Well, 2 ways you can look at it. One, obviously, he wants to get to a certain level with his career and do something else. I mean, he might just even say, I'm done acting, because you always kind of hear rumors that he's into like doing some other things.
Sure. So
that could be something to play. It might have just been a money ploy, too.
Could be.
He said, okay, if you really want me back, I'm going to say, maybe I'm thinking about being done. And how much did they say, what will it take to keep you here?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that he's unhappy. Like, that's the big thing, too, that I know some people are running with, like, oh, he's saying that he might be unhappy. He's not unhappy, trust me. I think he gets to a point where, okay, what else can I do with this character that hasn't been done? Now,
I can understand him being burnt out, too, because look at Daniel Craig with his run of the Bond films.
Oh, sure.
You know, he got done filming Spectre, and people asked him, oh, are you ready to put on the... Because he had still had one more film under his contract to play Bond, and people went up to him after he just got done with a grueling across the globe film schedule, and they're like, oh, you ready to put on the the tux one more time and play Bond one more time? And he said, I'd rather slit my wrists.
Yeah.
You know, I can understand him being burnt out. And if he wants to step away from it, you know, they write out Peter as just, oh, hey, you know, I'm going to go study abroad or go to, because in the films he's in high school, I'm going to go to college in Germany or some nonsense, and then do a Miles Morales film or a Spider-Gwen, or there's a whole list of characters you can do to continue the franchise. And when he wants to come back, he can come back. I can understand that.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I think you hit the nail right on the head. They need to do a Miles Morales trilogy. They need to.
I mean, the seed is there.
Oh, it's absolutely there, but you have to think about how popular that character is. And the fact that I know that we haven't seen him yet. It's a matter of when, not if.
Well, we saw his uncle in, what was it, the last movie?
Yes.
Or Homecoming.
Or Homecoming we did.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of when, not if for him. And once we see him on screen, I think they absolutely should do it. If Tom Holland wants to transition, do I think they would go the Ultimates route? I hope not.
I sure as shit hope not.
I
It's
don't.
a great story, but
yeah.
Jesus, I hope not.
I know. I mean, that the story is amazing. If you haven't got a chance to read Ultimate Spider-Man, you should definitely go check that out. I don't think they would go that route necessarily, but if they did, I would understand, though.
Now, if they bring in Ultimate Green Goblin, I'm okay with that.
Well, I mean, there's so many different ways. If they wanted to really test the waters with the Ultimates universe, that's the only thing they should really tempt with.
Uh-huh.
So just going to put that out there. Stay away from Ultimate X-Men. So that being said, I think with speculation for this new trilogy, if they wanted to split the duties between Tom Holland and whoever they're going to cast as Miles Morales, I think it'd be a great idea.
Yeah.
I think, the passing of the torch, or if they want to come up with an original story and base it off one of the classics.
Yeah.
It just depends on what direction they want to go with, because as it appears right now, No Way Home is going to be their Sinister Six movie, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
That's been the dream of Sony for years.
Literally since the early 2000s, because you look at what they set up with the Raimi films. They had, they had Green Goblin. They did Doc Ock. They did Sandman. They did Venom. They wanted to do Lizard and they wanted to do Vulture, but that didn't happen. So then they rebooted. And then in the Amazing Spider-Man films, you eventually you saw Rhino. You saw, Electro. You saw a Goblin. I don't remember if it was Green or Hob or whoever the hell it was, but you had a Goblin.
Yeah.
They were setting up for it again, but it bombed. So the track record is there of Sony wanting to do a Sinister Six movie. There were even rumors of them doing a Sinister Six movie without Spider-Man, which made no goddamn sense. But they're finally getting it, and we'll see if it's been worth the wait.
Well, that's going to be the big catalyst with this movie. There's so much going back to No Way Home. The announcement of the trilogy, this has to be a bookend for one story.
Oh, yeah.
But where it leads to now, especially with the multiverse being in play.
Yeah.
And that's the ultimate reset button for any idea that Marvel and Sony respectively wanted to do.
Sure.
You now have an open playbook. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? We've heard about how Sony wants to cast a Kraven movie, and we've heard that that's on the table. And then obviously with Morbius coming out, what are they planning on doing? We're going to have more Venom. They have a couple plans in place.
Yeah.
But for Spider-Man, I think the next phase absolutely should be transitioning to Miles Morales.
And I think if they continue with the Peter Parker, Tom Holland films, I think the Tony Stark aspect of things needs to take a back seat, if not get removed altogether.
Oh, yeah.
Because don't get me wrong, it made sense for Homecoming. The mentor, mentee, teacher, student thing. I get that. And it made sense for Far From Home when, he had just died. Mm-hmm. But the fact, Tony isn't that tied into Spider-Man in the comics like he is in the movies. He's around and he'll show up and he'll help him every now and then, but it's not as close as it is in the films. So I would like to see maybe Tony and his legacy take a backseat or maybe not just get brought up at all and really give time for Peter to be Peter.
Yeah, I agree too. I think that now he can step out of the shadow. He's solidified his place with the MCU and the Avengers. He is definitely the franchise guy. They can definitely do a lot of great stories with. He has a plethora of great Spider-Man stories from out the years.
Oh, God, yeah.
Wherever they want to go. I heard online that I guess people were really asking about Kraven's Last Hunt. I don't want to see that actually on film. I'll be honest. Great story. I don't want to see that on film. I'm not exactly sure what direction they're going to go in, but like I said, I think they should go into Miles Morales. I think that would be the perfect place to really do some new storytellings with some classic stories and see how the fans react to it. And I guarantee you they're going to knock it out of the park, because once you bring him in, we already set the small stepping stones for Young Avengers.
Oh, Christ, they're there, yeah.
So, I mean, if you don't want to call them Young Avengers, call them Champions, the book that's going on right now. You have a lot of playbooks to go with here. It's just a matter of what you want to call. So, Sony, the ball is going to be in your hands. I can't see you dropping it. And it's all going to go back to this movie of Spider-Man No Way Home.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that is going to come from this franchise moving forward is resting on that film's shoulders. It's a lot of pressure, especially on the actors involved, the director, the crew, because they now have set that bar so high, they can't afford to miss. It can't be a Phantom Menace. Sorry. It needs to be a great film. I have a good feeling about it going in. I've liked what I've seen so far. And obviously, if we are going to get Mephisto as Benedict Cumberbatch, which I am calling, I've been saying for a long time now, and I think all signs are pointing to that. I think it's a perfect way to hit the reset button after, and then whatever the franchise is going to take the place moving forward is going to be really, really something special to watch. That being said, we gave you a lot of Spider-Man talk to kick off the ODPH with. We want to hear from you now, so definitely hit us up on the hashtag ODPHpod. How was your struggles about getting Spider-Man No Way Home tickets? And a special shout out to our guys over at 3FN. If you have not heard their breakdown of the movie ticket struggle, you definitely need to go check out what Rich, Ron, and Diesel had to say about that on the latest 3 Fat Nerds podcast. And also, we have another franchise coming out in the Spider-Man universe. What do you want to see there? You want to see more Peter? You want to see Miles Morales? What stories do you want to see? Hit us up. Let us know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hi everyone, this is Mark, the DM for Stranger Damies. What is Stranger Damies, you ask? Well, we're just a bunch of first-time D&D players exploring the world of Tal'Dorei 30 years after the events of the Coma Conclave, which was made famous on Critical Role. Join us every week as we roll some dice, make some mistakes, but most importantly, we have fun. New episodes air every Wednesday at strangerdamies.podbean.com or on your favorite podcast streaming app. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Stranger Damies. And is it Wednesday yet?
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we are going to talk a little bit about Marvel Studios' Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Obviously, the series has come out. Big success thus far. Fan reaction has definitely embraced Jeremy Renner reprising the role of Clint Barton and Haley Steinfeld taking up the mantle of Kate Bishop. So we are going to jump into episode 3 entitled Echoes, and we are going to timestamp when we're going to break down the episode. So if you haven't seen episode 3 yet, fear not. Check the liner notes of this podcast, watch it, and then come right back in at the spot, because once we start deep diving, we don't like to stop. So in 3, 2, 1, pad. What did you think?
This episode was awesome and probably my favorite one of the series thus far.
Absolutely. This episode really hit the ground running, and especially for anybody that is not familiar with the character of Echo, played by Hawkeye Cox.
Mm-hmm.
So we open this episode with a flashback to her growing up.
Yep.
And Pat, what did you think about that?
I thought it was interesting. I got thrown for a bit because I thought it was maybe Kate Bishop as a young girl, and I'm like, wait, this doesn't seem like Kate Bishop. She seems a little different. And then the character started signing using sign language, and I'm like, oh, it's Echo. And then I sat up a little bit. I'm like, ooh, this is going to be good.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was seeing her grow up and seeing how she was adapting to learning sign language and seeing how her relationship was with her father.
Uh-huh.
And how much that played a big role later on, because we did get fast forward a little bit throughout her life, and seeing when she went to go see her father working at the garage.
Yep.
Well, somebody else was there doing some business on their own.
So it was a hooded fellow with a retractable sword, had a former alias of liking to shoot bows and arrows.
Allegedly.
Because
we did not see the front of the character.
That's true. And I did not pick up on that until you just said that.
Yes.
That's true.
We never saw the face of said person.
That's true.
We just saw a hooded figure running around with a sword. Could have been Oliver Queen? Who knows?
At this point, you never know. Multiverse, folks.
Could have been Mephisto. I kid. But we do see this character kill Echo's father.
Yep.
And then that kind of fast forwards to where we see our heroes of this show, Clint and Kate, are still being held by the tracksuit mafia.
And they're getting tortured, interrogated. I don't know what the hell you call this. They're stuck on 25 cent rides you'd let your kids, play outside of the grocery store, like a horse rocking back and forth. And I'm like, the hell's the point of this? Like, I get you're interrogating, you want information, but what's this supposed to do?
Right. So it's kind of a little funny scene that's going on. I mean, I guess
I think at one point they run out of quarters.
Yeah, they ran out of quarters, and everybody's kind of trying to figure out what's going on. And Clint Barton, with his S.H.I.E.L.D. background, is really keeping his captors at bay.
Uh-huh.
He's not tipping off too much. And then once Echo comes out to see them, she starts asking a lot of questions involving Ronan.
Mm-hmm.
And Clint is very smartly not giving up anything.
Oh, he's masterful.
Yeah. The way that Jeremy Renner played the scene off was very good. And Alka Cox definitely was going back and forth with him. It was a great scene because she's sitting there so aggressive trying to find out what happened with Ronan because she wants to extract revenge for what happened to her father.
Yep.
And he is so playing it off like he didn't know nothing. He throws the blame that Ronan has been killed on Black Widow.
Yeah, so she's like, where's he? Well, first he explains, oh, listen, she's not Ronan. She just found the suit, put it on. She's got nothing to do with it. Well, how do you know? Well, I know the person who killed him. He tells her he's dead. Oh, how do you know that? Oh, I know the person who killed him. Well, who killed him? Black Widow. Oh, well, isn't that convenient? The person who killed the person I'm trying to kill is dead. How do you know? I was there.
Yeah, it's just a very interesting scene to see how this all plays out. Because also during this time, too, we get another flashback, too, of her childhood and her mentioning about her uncle.
Mm-hmm.
And now I know this has really set the internet on fire, so we will address it here.
Sure.
So as we're seeing, there is a mysterious figure that we see his hand and we hear a laugh.
Isn't he wearing a tux suit? You can see a tux suit on the arm, too.
A little bit, too.
Yeah.
And obviously everybody ran wild with the speculation of who this person is.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, who do you think this is?
Kingpin.
Yes.
Which, I mean, people had already been speculating since the first 2 episodes dropped because there was the one line spoken to, I believe it was Kate's mother or her future father-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
that, I have friends in powerful places. And given it's the crime, it's the mafia, it's New York. If you know anything about crime and mafia in New York, you know who's at the head.
Yes, it's one Wilson Fisk. And the laugh is undeniably Vincent D'Onofrio,
mm-hmm.
which makes me an extremely happy camper.
You and me both.
Because he was masterful in his role on the Netflix show.
Yeah.
So we had heard speculation that he would be involved. We have not seen him on screen yet, so I want to say it's not officially a lock yet, but we have to consider it's done. And I would think it would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Obviously, with Charlie Cox being heavily rumored about being in Spider-Man No Way Home, this makes perfect sense. You're not going to have one without the other.
Yeah.
They are magical on screen together. So once we see this happen, and obviously if you know the comic history of the character of Echo, you know that there are ties to Wilson Fisk.
Mm-hmm.
This is not anything that's a super sleeper if you read the comics. But nevertheless, when we go back to the story, Clint Barton winds up buying himself some time after Echo is pulled away
mm-hmm.
because she's getting too emotionally tied into figuring out what happened here. He does make this dramatic escape from the 25-cent ride.
I think he's on a unicorn.
He definitely is. Like, it's just one of those wild, horse rides that kids usually take. And they have a great action sequence, too, where you really see his shield training come into play.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we haven't seen a lot of his hand-to-hand combat because, let's face it, in comparison to the rest of the Avengers, he is the weakest link.
Well, and also they've been fighting folks who aren't exactly hand-to-hand combat specialists. Chitauri, most of them were flying through the air. Ultron clones flying through the air. You wasn't there for Infinity War, Endgame, flying through the air and running. So you're not exactly going to get in a fist fight. You're going to shoot arrows at him.
Right, exactly. But for being just a normal human that shoots arrows, he still is considered that skillful that he is on the team.
Yeah.
Like, that's something that people really need to put in perspective. I know you can say, well, so is Batman on the Justice League, but Batman is a whole different entity unto himself. Clint Barton has earned his way onto this team because of what he brings, and that's a unique dynamic of just devil-may-care to every mission that he has.
You could say he has a unique set of skills that make him a threat to people like us.
Yes, definitely indeed. And then he winds up getting his bow back a little bit, We get a little distraction of, he gets Kate Bishop free. They have a great fight sequence. Like I say, the action in this episode is what is really the highlight.
Top notch, because he gets free and Kate's instantly like, wait, how did you do that? How did you do that? And she's trying to like use the whatever she was on to cut her duct tape free. And it's just not working. So from like across the warehouse there, because I appreciated the warehouse. It was an old KB Toys warehouse, which is no longer around anymore.
Damn it.
I love that little Easter egg. It's not an Easter egg, but I'm calling it an Easter egg. He from across the warehouse, he shoots an arrow and just perfectly, it skims the one bad guy's eyebrow, cuts him, and then comes down and cuts her bonds, on her hands open. And she's like, time to go.
Yes. And after Barton has to do a little hand-to-hand combat with Echo, they do escape.
Yep.
And then this is probably the most highlighted I could talk about this series thus far.
Yes.
They go on this epic, and I know that word gets thrown around a lot. The only way you can describe the cinematography of this is epic.
Oh, it was top-notch, and it was unique.
It was unique. This was the hallway scene of the Netflix shows.
Not wrong.
One take, one camera angle. You see how they steal a car, a beat-up Charger.
Beat up something. They wanted to take a 72 Charger.
Oh, it was a Charger they wanted to take originally, but they didn't do it.
Kate wanted to take the 72 Charger. She's like, let's take this one, because it was the first one out the door.
Right.
And Clint goes over to the other car there, and he goes, I'm not going to break into a 72 Charger.
Yeah. No, the banter back and forth between Seinfeld and Renner is really good, and it's really selling the show, too. They wind up stealing a car, and then it's one camera shot the entire way for the most part. Mm-hmm. The cinematography on the scene is absolutely stellar. This is something you really need to watch a couple times. And this is the hallway scene that we always say in Netflix, where it's just one shot, and that's it. What they're doing in here, too, we do see a little bit of Hawkeye's trick arrows come into play, where Kate Bishop has to shoot them.
Oh, that was awesome.
Yes, because at this point, too, Hawkeye is without his hearing aid.
Yeah, it got yanked out of his ear and broken because Echo said, that he should try doing it without it, that it's a hindrance.
Right. So they are really at the, downside of this equation, because the entire Tracksuit Mafia is chasing him through the streets of New York. Mm-hmm. It's an epic scene from top to bottom.
Yeah, and they're having a difficult time just communicating with each other because Hawkeye's, temporarily deaf right now. He doesn't have his hearing aid in. As we learn later, his sign language is a little rusty. Mm-hmm. And also you're in an action sequence driving a car through one of the boroughs of New York. You don't exactly have time to say something and try and read lips.
No, you don't. So the fact that this scene works as well as it does, they make this great escape off a bridge to the subway, is truly epic.
Well, and also, you got to give credit to both of their acting. Jeremy Renner's not actually deaf, spoiler alert.
Right.
But for Jeremy Renner's acting, that playing off that, like, oh, I can't hear her, just so masterfully, and I legitimately believed it.
Yeah, no, he was stellar. Like I said, both of them in this entire scene was just really stepping their game up, because you have to just take into account what's going on. They're getting hunted down. He can't hear. She's still so novice at shooting arrows of his trickery.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one thing, because they had the suction arrow, the foam arrow.
The Play-Doh arrow.
Yeah, like the
acid arrow.
This is such a throwback to the 70s style of, trick arrows that he always carries. It was just one of the cooler scenes that we've seen, because we haven't really seen it too much in the Avengers franchise. There's always been kind of the straightforward arrows for the
normal arrow, explosion arrows, rope arrows. Yeah, it's kind of standard.
Yeah, but this one definitely really stepped the game up, and really, it was just a fun scene too.
Yeah.
Like, that's the one thing too. This show is really capturing the seriousness and the fun of the Fraction and Aja run. Mm-hmm. And definitely want to say David Aja needs more credit for what he's done for this series than he is getting. I'm agreeing with the online movement. How he's not tagged in this stuff more is beyond me, because pretty much every promotional poster that they've done has taken an idea or image that he's done and ran with it.
Well, and also the end credits.
Yes, he definitely needs more credit for this show, and I hope that Disney does the right thing and does him right and fixes his problem ASAP. Nevertheless, our heroes escape, and they're making their way back to basically trying to figure out what is going on.
Yeah.
That Ronan is now such the figurehead of Echo's anger. They're also trying to figure out what Kate's future father-in-law. That's so weird saying.
Yeah. There's a great exchange. They get on the subway train. There's a great exchange between the two. Kate's like, "Oh my God, we need to walk the dog. He's been cooped up all day." And then Hawkeye just starts talking because he can't hear her, and he's just talking, and he's like, blah, 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 blah. And then he goes, "Oh, we need to walk the dog too. He's been cooped up all day."
Yeah.
Which is fantastic because, again, Jeremy Renner is not deaf. Like, he's hearing all of this and then masterfully repeating what she just said because his character can't hear it.
No, he did a fantastic job this episode. So when they wind up going back to Kate's apartment to kind of re-game plan everything going on, especially when she wants to go investigate the father-in-law, the
future father.
Yeah, that's I can't even wrap my head around that for some reason, but nevertheless, her future stepfather. Thank you. Clint winds up getting a call from his family.
Yep.
And this even goes more into play of how he has to act that he can't understand what's going on. Kate has to be the interpreter to him and just really try to balance out, like, everything is falling around me, but I'm still standing. And that's true Hawkeye 101.
Yeah, because the phone rings, and if I'm not mistaken, it comes up as his wife.
Yes.
It comes up on the caller ID that it's his wife calling. So he instantly just goes into, "Oh, hey, honey, can't talk right now, really busy. I'll call. Can we text? And that's when Kate holds up a notepad saying, "It's your son." And he goes, "Oh, shit."
Yeah. Once they deal with that, they decide to go back to Eleanor's house where she's living with her Kate's stepdad.
Future stepdad.
Yeah. Still, I know. I just can't get my head wrapped around that because I know who Swordsman is, and this is going to end so badly.
Well, now, don't they along the way, like, she starts telling him about her suspicions about her future stepdad?
Yeah.
And he's like, and Clint, Hawkeye's like, "Nah, listen, it can't be that bad." She's like, "No, listen, I sword fought the guy, and he acted like he didn't know anything, but then he parried me perfectly."
Yes.
And he goes, "Okay, yeah, that's a little weird."
So something's going along the lines there. And obviously, if you know the comics, you know there is a bit of history between Hawkeye and Swordsman, too. That they are kind of ducking a little bit from the show right now, which I'm not mad about. Like, I thought I was going to say, like, that's kind of a little bigger piece of the puzzle, but
keeping it simple, though.
But which it doesn't, it's not a bad ploy right now, especially because the series is only 6 episodes. So once they break into the Eleanor's house, they try going through her business, which is Bishop Security, and looking up the criminal database of possible offenders that they would come across.
Yeah.
However, when Kate is doing this, because Kate says, "Oh, this will be easy peasy," she finds out that not everything is going her way, is it, Pat?
Yeah, the login she knows, whether it's hers or her mother's or somebody or just some random person's, the login she knows isn't working. It's locked out.
Yes.
And all the meanwhile, so she starts trying to bypass it. And Hawkeye gets a little curious, starts wandering around, and runs into somebody.
Yes, he runs into Swordsman himself, who has the Ronin sword right by his throat.
Yep.
Fade to black.
Would have been an awesome end scene. Would have been more cool if he walked around the corner and the sword popped out.
Yeah, I think so.
That'd have been awesome.
Yeah. But with everything going on and with all the action in this sequence, I was not mad about this.
No.
I just thought they tipped their hand a little bit too much.
Yeah, maybe.
Because as we touched upon the beginning, when we were getting the flashback sequence of when we saw Echo see her father get killed. Well, we never saw the guy's face. Swordsman had the suit for that illegal auction that was underneath the building of episode 1. They have almost tipped their hand that he's the guy that killed her dad.
Yeah.
Which I think will make a lot of sense because in the comics, same kind of scenario happens, but a little different.
Sure.
So I get it. Not mad about it. But I thought for overall what they did this episode, very, very strong. The action sequences popped off the screen. Pat, final thoughts on this episode?
Great episode. Fantastic action sequences. And if we do end up seeing, Wilson Fisk down the road, which I'm fully on board with, we are going to see that. I'm excited to see it.
I'm completely with you. I think that when the final episode of the series comes out, and we've only got, 3 more?
3 more, yeah. There's 4, 5, and then 6.
So that'll be coming out, if I'm doing my math correctly, after No Way Home. Because the final episode will be on the 22nd.
Yes.
Well, I think we're going to see Wilson Fisk in that bonus scene at the end of the series.
Could be.
I don't think we're going to see him during the regular one, which is perfectly well played to do. Because you don't want to take away from the amazing job that they're doing right now on the show. Capturing the fraction in a jaw run is coming to life. The essence is really translating on screen. Jeremy Renner had one of his stronger acting moments that we've seen thus far in this episode. Haley Steinfeld was playing off him left and right. It was great to see what they were doing. Alkia Cox, definitely was portraying Echo as a character that I definitely want to see more of. That I thought she just gave enough of her background without deep diving into everything, so we know everything going on at once. Mm-hmm. So I did like what that was presented to the table. And Dukanesque, a.k.a. Swordsman, I'm waiting to see what Tony Dalton does with this, because he's just oozing that cheesy charisma off here, and then see how he plays off Hawkeye, especially now that it feels like they already tipped their hand. I really want to see how they can drag it on for 2 more episodes. That's where I'm kind of standing with it. That being said, you've got our takes on Hawkeye Episode 3 entitled Echoes. We gave our takes. Now we want yours, ODPH Society. So hit us up on those social media accounts. Hashtag ODPH Pod. What is your thoughts about Hawkeye, the series in general, and Episode 3? Let's talk. And remember, though, no posting on social media for 72 hours, starting in effect Wednesday. That being said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Do not adjust your dial. Or, well, your phone, your watch, or whatever the heck you're using to listen to the awesome podcast you're currently listening to. I am the Duke of Nerds, Tyler Mack, and I am here to tell you that being a nerd can be a bit overwhelming, especially after 30. Life moves pretty fast in our nerd culture, and if you don't take the time to notice things, you miss out. That's why I'm here. As your Duke of Nerds, I am charged with educating, enlightening, and entertaining you on all things nerdy. I do it by running the 30 to Nerdy podcast. 30 to Nerdy is a Badcast company production and currently playing wherever you cast your pod. Follow along each episode using the hashtag 30andNerdyPod. And check out what all is going on at 30andNerdyPodcast.com. Whether it's DC, Marvel, comics, or video games, I have got you covered. So tune in now. Cheers to you, nerds.
Back again for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we are going to recap the big event going on the CW network right now.
Yeah.
And that is The Flash Armageddon.
Mm-hmm.
So since The Flash has returned for Season 8, they're in the middle of a 5-episode extravaganza, if you could say.
Yep.
If I may copy Rich from 3FN on that. Extravaganza. And we are seeing that Barry has been challenged by the villain Despero, who's basically said, you're responsible for ending the world, so I'm going to end you instead.
Because that always works out.
It definitely does, because, reasons. So that being said, we are going to recap Episode 3, Armageddon Part 3. Mm-hmm. You know the deal by now. If you haven't seen the episode, pause. Definitely jump in after the countdown, after you've seen it, because we don't want to spoil anything for you. We give you that fair warning, because after the countdown, we don't stop deep diving. So that said, in 3, 2, 1. Pad, what did you think about the CW's DC Comics, The Flash, Episode 3, Armageddon?
Was the best episode they've done thus far. Fantastic start to finish. And that cliffhanger ending.
This episode was probably one of the best Flash episodes they've done in 2 years.
Probably.
Easily. And I have not been impressed by The Flash in a very, very long time. I think that for being a show that has the ability to borrow from one of the best rogues galleries in all of comics, they stutter step a little bit. Mm-hmm. They decide to go in different directions. It just doesn't always connect. However, though, when they nail things right, they do it right. Mm-hmm. In this episode, we had a crossover coming in from Black Lightning, who's reprising the role as Cress Williams.
Yep.
So happy to see him back at the CW. And Barry is still invoking this idea that he is now buying into what Despero's telling him. He's going to end the world. So he's yelled at the end of last week's show, Injustice, which fired me up, fired Dre Driven up, fired you up, because obviously if you're talking Injustice, what are we expecting, Pat?
Something to do or something along the lines of the video game by the same name.
Yeah, so I'm like, is Tyler Hoechlin showing up like as Angry Superman? Like, what is going on here? But we come to find out that it has a different term for the show.
Yeah, we find out that at the end of Crisis on Infinite Earths, Barry, Black Lightning, Kara, and Sarah Lance come up with this protocol in the event that one of them goes rogue, they have picked someone in the Justice League, to basically take away their powers and remove them from being a threat. Because as Barry says at one point during the episode, if one of us goes rogue, the world is doomed.
Yeah, it's a very interesting play on it. I was disappointed because I was expecting full Injustice because I love that franchise.
Full Injustice.
I know, but I can dream, can't I?
Don't you already have the shitty movie?
I know, but I need something better than the movie. The movie was a letdown. I don't want to get into it. It hurts too much. Nevertheless, we have our big hero versus hero fight going on, eventually coming from this, because Black Lightning is following Barry's lead, because Barry has not given him every detail.
He's holding some cards close to the chest.
He's holding them very close because he's really not trying to put anybody else in danger, so he feels.
He also knows that Black Lightning, as a father and as a teacher, if he tells him everything is going on, is not going to follow through on it.
Yeah.
And I think at one point in the episode, he goes, I knew you would react like this if I told you everything.
Yes, but once Jefferson finds out, it's now a full-on fight, because he's like, I'm not going to let you do this. And he starts bringing up Oliver's name and saying he sacrificed himself to the Monitor for you.
And this might be the most counterintuitive fight I've ever seen in television history and in comic history. The man who controls lightning is fighting the guy who is powered by lightning. What?
Yeah, that didn't really make a lot of sense.
It was a cool fight, but I'm like, this is counterproductive.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have a lot more explosions than we did. I'm not going to lie about it.
Yeah.
So they wind up having a big meltdown, because once Barry's true intentions are coming to light, Jefferson is not hearing one word of it, nor should he, because it's an absolutely insane plan. But
dumb idea.
But this is what Barry does at times. That he shows those big faults in his character, which I know is supposed to gravitate a little bit more. It's supposed to connect and do some stuff. But like when he does, it's like, Barry, come on now. You've been around this long enough. If you were still a rookie at this, I could understand. Mm-hmm. But at this stage of the game, you are the big hero in the DC CW universe, asterisk, because Superman and Lois doesn't connect with you that often.
Yeah.
Yet. Hopefully next season we do. But, nevertheless, they have their big battle. Meanwhile, the rest of Team Flash is trying to figure out the mystery of Joe West's death.
Well, they're trying to figure out how they want to help Barry, because they say, listen, that's in the future. If we've learned anything from working with Barry over the years, we can change the future. However, we got to go through it. So what we need to do right now is Barry is going through a mental health crisis. We need to figure out how to help Barry. So they're all meeting together. And then Iris walks in and goes, listen, Barry might not be wrong. Joe might not be dead.
Yes. So now Iris is leading the investigation going on. She goes back to the scene of the crime with Allegra. Mm-hmm. And they wind up piecing together that, that train that allegedly hit Joe was early, and somebody moved him out of the timeline.
Well, they get there, but it's one of these odd puzzle moments that, the puzzle just keeps growing, because at first she looks at the footage. The footage was given to her by another detective in CCPD after her father died, but just given the circumstances, and I understand it, she didn't want to look at it. She just couldn't bring herself to look at it. So she finally looks at it, watches the footage, and, he's there 1 minute and gone the next. So like you mentioned, they go to check on it, and the guy goes, that's understandable. When we upload our footage to the server, a lot of times there was some sporting event going on. They didn't say what sport. I'm going to guess probably football or something.
Yeah, I think so.
They're running at the same time, so data will get sometimes lost in the upload, but luckily we back it up the whole time. And then she sees the footage from their hard copy, I guess you could say, that, unlike the footage she had where he blinks and disappears, he doesn't disappear in this. So she kind of reneges and goes, maybe I was wrong the entire time. But then she digs into it further after getting convinced by Allegra that, hey, no, listen, things don't seem right. She's like, no, yeah, somebody pulled him out of the timeline.
Yeah, Candace Patton and Kayla Compton, who play Iris and Allegra respectively, did a really solid job with his backstory. Like I said, you can really tell if Iris is using her reporting skills to really dig in to find out what's going on. And once it kind of gets pieced together what's happening, they now have a real chance of uncovering the problem.
Also, Iris's budding powers, question mark?
Yeah, I did not
I don't know if
figure that out.
I don't know if she's developing, because I think in the episode they said it's a result of time dilution, I think is what they said, aka the time she spent in the Mirrorverse. So I don't know if this is her getting powers or this is just going to be a side effect for a couple episodes, as a result of the Mirrorverse and last season, and then it's going to go away. But interesting nonetheless.
I kind of hope it's temporary.
Yeah.
Just because with the Flash, and this is one drawback that I think with the CW, is not everybody needs powers.
I think it's also a little overpowered if you have a person that can just look around, activate her powers, and go, oh, that's where the issue is.
Yeah. Like if you want the precognitive sense, sure. But that's kind of what you have with Cecile to a degree.
Yeah.
Who, Danielle Nicolette had her own storyline going on, finding another brain-powered individual to help figure out what they could do to hide, to track down Barry, but also hide him from Despero. That did not go as well as planned.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, they did track him down.
Eventually,
but Despero
made a Cerebro reference.
Yeah.
That was cool.
Which I was like, okay, we're doing a little crossovers here. I don't want to get too fired up. But Despero winds up showing up to the party, taking out Cecile's partner in crime, literally.
Yeah.
And is on his way to go find Barry.
Yep.
Because now he's been desperately trying to track him down.
But just for some reason, he can't track him down. But, Cecile figures, I know him almost. I like the phrasing. I know him almost better than anyone. Good phrasing.
Yeah.
They track him down, but Despero does intervene and goes, oh, hey, thanks. Bye.
Yes. So once Despero shows up to the fight going on between Black Lightning and the Flash, everybody kind of turns their attention to him. Black Lightning and him have a great standoff, which I was happy to see, because Black Lightning, I don't think is realized of how powerful he is.
No.
And Despero is on a Superman type level.
Sure.
If you really want to break it down to, not up that high per se, but he's definitely more of a heavyweight than they're portraying him on the show to be.
They kind of reference it. He's almost, I think in the first episode or second episode, whenever they were talking with
Alex,
she mentioned that he's almost as powerful as a Kryptonian.
Yeah.
Or his body is.
Well, if you ever watch or read the comics that he's featured in, and he's done well, yeah, he's on that level. They really haven't done it. I understand CGI and budgets and such. So I take that with a grain of salt with this. We can't have everything we want. It's not an HBO Max budget. But nevertheless, you don't really get to see that power level go on here. But it's good to see what Black Lightning is facing off when it's like, okay, now I get why he's on this team, because he can really hold his own with some of the heavy hitters. I'd love to see this more in the comics too.
Yeah.
But this buys Barry some time, because once he comes to his senses, because Iris and everybody comes and is like, hey, you're really not responsible for this. You got to go to the future and figure this out, because that always works.
Yeah.
He winds up jumping in 2031, the year where everything is supposed to allegedly fall apart. This is where the show gets very, very interesting, but I will say this is probably my least favorite part of the show.
I thought it was awesome.
It was awesome, but predictable. And this is what I didn't like. So what happened here, Pat?
So he jumps into the future, and I like how they attempted at making it look futuristic with putting one futuristic-looking car on the street.
Yeah.
But then there were cars in the background that weren't futuristic-looking. Hey, he's on the street. He sees a sign outside of a building. I don't remember what the building was, but it says West Party. Mm-hmm. And he walks in, and he sees... He sees a gentleman standing on stage pontificating about, fate stepping in and taking a face you never expect and blah, blah, blah. And if you pay attention, there's some faces we recognize in the crowd from Team Flash and various other things. Just aged up a little bit, because it is 10 years in the future. Mm-hmm. And we come to find out that it is, basically a celebration at an engagement and an impending marriage. I don't know if they're married yet or not. But Eobard Thawne is standing next to, he's got Team Flash, Alex, Ryan Choi, Ryan Wilder, and then he's also got Iris, who he is either engaged to or is married to.
Yeah, I think they're now married to. So Tom Cavanaugh is back. That's never a bad thing.
Facts.
Eobard Thawne is back, though.
Which we knew. At the end of last season, he did run away, and I don't remember quite. I tried looking it up. I don't remember quite what he said, but he said something about, I'll be back or something.
Right, which I get, but it's like you were just here. You don't need to be in every episode. Like I said, I love seeing Tom Cavanaugh. Don't get me wrong.
Hasn't been in 4 episodes.
Yeah, but still, man, I'm
three time, whatever it is.
I know, but it's just like, okay, we can go to a different villain maybe and do something.
But then you'd be complaining it's another speedster changing things.
No,
again.
I wouldn't be, because you know what I'd say? It's like, okay, if you're going to do something different here, like Despero is not exactly somebody who deals with a speedster.
Well, but Despero is doing what he did because Thawne changed the past, which, let's face it, in the Flash rogues gallery of folks who can change the past that we're familiar with on the show, Thawne is the only one who makes sense.
Or unless they want to go back to Zoom.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, I think they could have done something different. I'm sorry. No, I could have done without another speedster. You can go with another people in time if you want. There are enough wacky hijinks that go on in the Flash universe that you could have done it and not had a speedster involved. I'm sorry. The fact that we got Eobard Thawne back again it's like too much too soon.
Yeah, I'm all right with it.
I know you're good with it. Me, not so much. But I can deal with it because it's like the minute you started going to time travel, and the minute I saw him on stage, I was like, oh, we're going back to Thawne.
I got excited because Tom Cavanaugh's back.
Well, it's great to see him back. Don't get me wrong. I would have rather had him be somebody else, and then you see like the other villain come out. Like, how is it? And I understand the actor did not want to reprise the role, but you could not tell me that you couldn't get Captain Cold to come in and do something.
They'd have to recast, and
right?
They won't do it at this point,
right? I'm just saying, but like you could have done it at this point and done something with it.
If they didn't do it at the crisis point and multiverses colliding, they're not going to do it,
right? But I'm just saying, if you really want to do something different, Flash is arguably greatest villain, and you guys.
I just don't buy Captain Cold going into the past to change the past and screw over Barry and his entire family.
Yeah, I mean, there's ways you could do it, but like I say, to see Thawne back again doing it is like, oh, really? Sorry, not my cup of Java. I get why, but I'm like, if you're really gonna do it, I much would have rather had somebody else, maybe even like Vandal Savage or somebody, like do something.
Isn't he dead?
Yeah, he's immortal. Like it's always debatable.
I thought they killed him.
Well, like I say, he's always immortal, so it's like there's ways to bring it back. It's comics, there's reasons. Either way, though, we did get a very solid episode from The Flash.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, can't be too mad about it, except we got another speedster villain.
Hey, Damien Dark's coming back, though. Neil McDonough.
Right, I'm happy to see him back. I mean,
yeah.
If you want to say that Damien was doing something and tampering with the timeline, sure.
That I'd buy.
That makes a lot more sense.
That I would buy more than Captain Cold.
Yeah, well, you know what? But I'm saying anybody but Thawne. Just because we're just retreading the wheel and it's going absolutely nowhere. It's just going in circles. Like I say, I love seeing Tom Cavanagh on screen. Don't get me wrong. But it's better in small doses so you appreciate it more if he's going to keep being Thawne. Like, eventually a villain has to be defeated and they have to go away.
See, the thing of it is, though, is they're not doing traditional full-season villains and full-season stories like you're used to. You know, they're doing the graphic novel approach. You know, it's only the 5 episodes and then they're on to something else. So we'll only see him for maybe 2 more episodes and then bye.
But when we just saw him at the season finale. Like, that's what I say. Like, it's just, you could space it out better is where I'm going with about this. Like I said, we got a debatable topic here for The Flash. So ODPH Society... After Pat gives his thoughts, let us know what you think. So, Pat, final thoughts on the episode?
Great episode. Great cliffhanger ending. I'm excited to see where they go with it, and I'm excited to see the explanation of why the hell is he here.
Yeah, like I say, in closing, again, like I say, it was probably their strongest episode they've done in 2 years. The ending definitely puzzled me a little bit, but then again, you know, it's the Flash and his reasons. Either way, we got a lot to talk about, so definitely hit us up on the hashtag ODPHpod. What was your thoughts about The Flash, Episode 3 of Armageddon? We definitely want to have a conversation. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sideroom Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna go.
Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pat, what you got for those one-shots?
Got 2 things to talk about. The first of which is tonight is the return of one of my favorite TV shows of all time. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It returns tonight on FXX for its 15th season.
Jesus.
So when it debuts tonight, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia will be the longest running live action comedy series in TV history, surpassing the previous record holder of The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet.
That's wild.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. The show started way back in 2005, you know, as just a show about a group of folks who own a bar in Philadelphia, and they're just the worst human beings you could ever run into.
This is true.
You just go over some of the episodes over the years, you know, just absolutely outrageous, cringe moments, make you feel uncomfortable moments, but it's one of the shows that I think has spawned more memes and more GIFs than any other one in history. You have to really think about it. But so the episodes return tonight on FXX. They got 2 episodes premiering, the first of which is titled 2020, A Year in Review. And the description on IMDb reads, "The gang looks back on 2020 to justify their numerous PPE loans as they contributed to the chaos of the past political year way more than anyone could have imagined." Oh my God, it's going to be outrageous. Now, we should note that the show is already, It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, has already done a pandemic outbreak episode. This was way back in season 9, episode 7, titled The Gang Gets Quarantined, where there was a flu outbreak in Philadelphia. So they're dipping into the toes yet again. So they got that episode tonight. And then the second one is The Gang Makes Lethal Weapon 7, which reads... Yeah, there were no Lethal Weapon sequels coming, so they decided to make a few of their own. And the description of this reads, upon discovering that their self-made Lethal Weapon sequels have been pulled from the local library, the gang decides to address their political incorrectness by making another film, Lethal Weapon 7. And if you're familiar with the show and you know their previous Lethal Weapon movies, you know why it's politically incorrect, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Fair enough. I mean, it just blows my mind the show has lasted 15 years now.
Oh, yeah. No, the first season, takes some getting used to, but the show gets really good. I think in season 2, when Danny DeVito joins the show.
Yeah, he adds a different dynamic to that show.
It's just so good. There's so many good episodes over the years. All the episodes are on Hulu, and the episodes are going to be airing at 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern. Check your local listings in your area on FXX, and it will be on Hulu the next day.
Man, that's going to be exciting stuff.
I'm so fucking excited. Switching over to some TV book news, I guess you could say. George R.R. Martin apparently begged HBO to do 10 seasons of Game of Thrones.
What?
Yeah, so this was reported by Insider. There's a book coming out titled Tinderbox, HBO's Ruthless Pursuit of New Frontiers, which is by journalist James Andrew Miller. And it goes into some details about how George R.R. Martin apparently flew to New York and begged him to do 10 seasons, among other things. So it says, quote, George would fly to New York to have lunch with former HBO CEO Richard Pipler to beg him to do 10 seasons of 10 episodes because there was enough material for it, and to tell him it would be a more satisfying and more entertaining experience. Martin's agent Paul Haas says in the book. And reading from an article on IGN.com, according to Haas, Martin also reportedly worried that HBO wasn't following his template in terms of plotting out the story. Quote, George loves Game of Thrones showrunners Daniel Weiss and David Benioff. But after season 5, he did start to worry about the path they were going because George knows where the story goes. He started saying, you're not following my template. We all know how the final season ended with the twist endings and the this and the that. In 2021, the show ended a couple of years ago. HBO is still apparently defending it, saying, quote, if there had been another episode or two, of course, that would have been helpful, HBO Chief Content Officer Casey Blois said in Tinderbox. I would have taken 2 more seasons, but I do believe if you look at the totality of her, meaning Daenerys, arc over the series, as opposed to the final episodes, her turn was more than earned and was planned, close quote. Martin, is, I guess, mixed on the ending. Said, quote, I wish it had run for 10 years. I think it would have given us a little more time in the later seasons to end it, but that might just be because I'm still trying to end the books here, close quote. Yeah, no, that's the issue. Like 10 episodes and 10 seasons would have been great and all, but it's 10 years since the last fucking book came out.
Yeah, exactly.
The first book, Game of Thrones, came out in August of 1996. The second one, A Clash of Kings, came out in February of 1999. Third one, A Storm of Swords, came out in November of 2000. Feast of Crows came out in November 2005. A Dance with Dragons, the 5th book in the 7-book series. So mind you, we're still waiting on the Winds of Winter and A Dream of Spring, the final 2 books. A Dance with Dragons came out in July 2011. We're waiting 10 and a half years now on the 6th book. And by the way, he's still got one more fucking book to do. So they not only started it after you were in the middle of writing, book 6, they finished the damn thing before you finished writing book 6. You can't complain and bitch about the ending when they hit a point and didn't know what the hell to do. And you're like, oh, just get to this point. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole problem. That, let's face it, Game of Thrones was the biggest thing on television for a good amount of time.
Sure.
You can't deny it. Whether you love the show or hate the show, it was the pop culture show of the moment.
Sure.
Anytime you, as a author or content creator, sign up to do a TV show, and you're not finished, there is a certain deadline you need to be done for your TV show. They're not going to stop production for you.
No.
So in Martin's case, like, you can beg and plead for more time, but then you haven't finished the books.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you're your own fault for this, just because if you go to A Song of Ice and Fire Wikipedia page, it lists the publishing history and it lists the books, their pages, chapters, words, the audio book length. You know, at the longest, A Storm of Swords is 973 pages, 82 chapters long, 414,604 words long. The audiobook will take you 47 hours and 37 minutes to finish.
Yeah, I mean, come on now.
A Dance with Dragons is even longer at 1,056 pages, 73 chapters, almost the same number of words, 414,788. And then that one will take you over 2 days to finish if you listen to it straight through nonstop. Like, when you're writing these books that long, don't get me wrong, they're good books. They're long, and it took me 2+ years to read the damn things. But when you take this long and you delay and your writer's block and you have to lock yourself in your house in a pandemic just to finish the things, it's your own fault.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I can't be too wound up about it. I'm sorry, like...
The series up through where he wrote the books was fine, and they were great. It was once we got past that, you know, the cliff's edge, I guess you could say, where we were in uncharted territory, where allegedly he told them how the book series was going to end. You know, just get there. You just got to get to this point. Listen, if that's all you're giving them, it's on your own fault.
Exactly. Like I said, I don't feel bad about this at all. I'm sorry. Like, I think what the problem is the reaction of fans had to the ending.
Sure.
That I think that it's like, in a weird sense, and hear me out on this, because I know you've never seen Dexter.
Sure.
Dexter was great until the end.
Sure.
And the fans hated the ending so much
Sure.
that it drove them to come back and redo it.
Sure.
I think in kind of like a parallel sense, how bad the show was for the majority of people.
Sure.
Because, I mean, there are some people that liked it.
Sure.
I think that really just got under Martin's skin, in my opinion.
I think so. And I think just because of how popular it became and how ingrained in pop culture it became, for it to have the ending it did and the fan reaction it did, I think hurt him. And I've heard people say this before, and I agree with them. Game of Thrones has one of the more unique endings I've ever seen, in that I've never seen a show so ingrained in our heads and in pop culture and in everyday life that once it ended, fell so far off the cliff, it's almost not even mentioned anymore.
You have to think about it. It literally was.
Because even as great as Breaking Bad was, and Breaking Bad is, to this day, the best show I've ever seen. You know, it's not talked about every day, but it's still talked about fairly regularly. You still hear people talk about it and discuss it and just reminisce on it. Not super rare, not every day, but every once in a while. Game of Thrones? Christ, I can't tell you the last time I spoke to somebody about something in Game of Thrones.
Well, this goes back to even what we were talking about in opening segment. If something is so hyped up and doesn't deliver...
Yeah.
It falls off quick.
Well, I mean, look at when they were hyping up the Battle of Winterfell. That it beat Lord of the Rings: Two Towers as the longest cinematic battle sequence in television and film history. And we got to it, and we're like, that's it.
Yeah.
That they're like, it took us a month of night shoots to film this thing, and even I was like, I'm hyped up. I'm like, fuck, I love Two Towers, Battle of Helm's Deep. It's one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite battles in film history. And I'm like, I get to Battle of Winterfell, and I'm like, that's it? Really?
Give up the dream, man. Just let it go.
Just finish the books.
Take the L. You know what? The smartest thing he could do right now, write a completely different ending. Okay, you now have all the time to write.
Mm-hmm.
You have no pressure from HBO. The prequel doesn't matter. I'm sorry, whatever the show is that they're doing.
Okay, with Matt Smith, yeah.
Forget about it. Like, that's gone. Write your own ending. Because guess what? If it's that good, mark my words, somebody will remake the series.
Even J.K. Rowling, because I can remember she had the ending of Harry Potter written and in her head before she actually wrote the final book.
Yeah.
Even she changed, a bit of the ending and some of the characters who were there or weren't there, over the years. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. If he's got the ending in his head, he can change it.
Yeah.
It's not like there's a gun to his head saying you have to write that ending.
Exactly. You want to change the ending because it'll be smart. Because you know what? More people will buy the book to see what happened. It's business.
Yeah.
Just, you can be mad about how people are tuned off to it. Guess what? If you write the book and the book is good enough, it's called word of mouth. It works a lot better than people realize.
I'm just going to need like IGN, comicbook.com, Nerdist, or somebody to put together a video recapping what happened in the previous 5 books, because I'm not reading those things over again. That took me legitimately. I'll have to look up it legitimately on my Goodreads. It took me legitimately like 2+ years, maybe. I want to say maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5.
Oh, somebody will do it. Somebody will do it on TikTok.
Somebody TikTok ain't long enough.
No, somebody will do like minute points.
No, yeah, like
you watch.
Somebody has to recap those books before if the next one comes out.
Probably be a podcast.
Maybe.
And no, it will not be on the ODPH.
No, we ain't got the time for that.
Just putting that out right now.
You thought the NFL preview episode was long? Huh.
I know. We'll put that to shame. Especially, I don't have time. I got comic reviews to write. Great segue, I know, because this week's parlay points at the comic shop. So, Pad, I know you are a fan of the Lord of the Rings type. You like that kind of magical, mystical. I have a book for you, and I'm just going to show you this panel.
Okay.
Okay, now, I wish we had a video screen. I can't really show them.
What the fuck? Oh, my Lord.
Okay.
That's insane.
This is called Once and Future.
Okay.
It's an amazing book by Boom Studios. Kieran Kelly and Dan Mora do it, and it ties in King Arthur mythology to modern day. It's absolutely fantastic.
Okay.
This is a book I think you should check out. Here is the cover, too. I'm just going to let you show this.
Ooh.
Because I want Pad's honest reaction. I don't show him because I want you to hear this at home.
That's cool.
Yeah, the whole book is badass.
That's cool.
And I say, if you really want something different to try at the shops, I've been able to review the past couple issues. Shout out to Boom Studios for putting us on the press list to do it. It's a fantastic read. And the visuals on this book are absolutely wild. You get this crazy idea to run with about King Arthur mythology, modern day mix, and just let it go. It hits on all points. And the action sequences are absolutely intense as all can be. This is a book you definitely want to make sure is added to your pull list. Like I said, Once in the Future number 22 is out at out of the shelves right now. DC wise, a lot of Batman stuff, a lot of annuals this week too. Batman the Detective number 6 is out, so I believe that's the final issue of the series. Tom Taylor, Batman, enough said. And yeah, there's the Robin annual is out, Nightwing annual is out. It kind of throws me off when annuals start reappearing.
Yeah,
because they kind of went away for a little bit in comics and then came back. Comixology, The All Nighter number 3 is out. Chip Zdarsky and Jason Liu. Listen, if you're not on Comixology Unlimited, I highly recommend it because not only do you get great books like this, you get the Scott Tober run. We Have Demons has been freaking fantastic. Clear has been on point too. And Night of the Ghoul, if you want some horror comics in your life, go check those books out. Fantastic reads. And Marvel, the book that jumped out to me was Venom number 2 because Ram V is now taking over the helm.
Okay.
And Brian Hitch is on the pencils. And the cover is very, very catching. I'll say that there.
That's awesome.
So definitely make sure you swing it down to your local comic shops. Go support them during this holiday season. I'm just going to put out a PSA too. If you have a pull list, make sure you pay that up and get it caught up by year's end for the holidays. Make sure you don't have books hanging. If you haven't been down to your shops in a while, get down there and square up ASAP. I'm not going to go into details, but I'm just going to say get down there and make sure you're supporting them. If you're out there on Twitter and you're bumping in, like saying, yeah, I go to my comic shops, make sure you don't have a pull list that's over a month long. Make sure you're caught up because it is supporting small business and you don't want to leave anybody hanging during the holiday season. Closing out this ODPH, my one shot, I wasn't going to let this episode of Fear the Walking Dead slip by.
Okay.
We had a lot going on, so
Yeah.
I'm just going to kind of go into arguably bullet points of episode 7 entitled The Portrait of Fear the Walking Dead season 7. So listen, we do the spoiler warning, and I'm going to say it right now in 3, 2, 1. What did I think? This episode was everything I was looking for, albeit though it was a little different than what I've been expecting.
Okay.
Because this episode was a standoff between Morgan and Strand. I've been hyping this up, how Lenny James and Coleman Domingo have absolutely been crushing it in their roles, and they are just the frenemies. They're like Professor X and Magneto in the comics a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, they don't like each other, but when they have to work together, it usually puts this very odd parallel to where they have to kind of swallow their pride to do this.
Right.
We have this episode where it opens up where Strand is getting his portrait painted, and it's a dictator. Just please, he's saying, don't paint me as you see me, paint me as I see me.
Right.
And he's not happy, and you have all these people that are trying to get into their tower, which is the only place safe with the nuclear warhead that went off, that Strand is prospering, and somehow he's emerged as this figurehead in this community, until he gets one phone call from a character by the name of Arno.
Okay.
And Arno is part of the group that has been called the Stalkers.
Ah.
And they're the ones with that leaking nuclear warhead that was found. And more or less, he's saying, you're going to lessen this building, otherwise we're going to infect everything around you, contaminating your food supply, your water supply, and walkers.
Hey.
So
That's always good.
Yeah, so this is a little interesting about how this plan goes. So during this time, too, Morgan has also shown up at an earlier stage, and his daughter is sick. So they're trying to get to June, who's played by Jenna Coleman, as the nurse.
Okay.
And basically, Morgan is trying to do whatever he can to get in, and Strand ultimately lets him come in, which is kind of weird.
Yeah, interesting take there.
Yeah, which, I mean, because from the first episode of the season, he threw the guy off the building.
Right.
The fact he's letting everybody in, I just think is kind of weird, but this goes to show of how broken Strand is.
Yeah.
And how power absolutely corrupts, because you can tell he's not thinking straight.
Right.
And then during this time, too, he appears to be having a heart attack. So now he has to rely on Morgan to more or less go to the downstairs to fight off everybody, to basically get some semblance of peace in his building.
Yeah.
It's a really, really wild scenario, and you kind of see him having to work together because when he's trying to do this, Morgan is more or less bargained. He's like, I can get a hold of Grace. Grace has a SWAT truck. We have forces that can come in. We can definitely take out this threat while it's going on. Because Arno gave him an hour to decide if he's letting his people in. Otherwise, he's going to just basically take it by force.
Right.
So it is a little bit of a crazy scenario going on. Ultimately, though, after some great acting between Morgan and Strand, they do get the job done.
Okay.
And you think that there's going to be peace in the valley until you see that Strand, who's still weak at this time too, like he's more or less forcing his way because his ego won't let him be at peace.
Yeah.
And like they have this great heart-to-heart about basically the original plan was if Morgan wanted the child to stay here with Grace, he was going to have to do something for him. He was going to have to find Alicia, who has been gone this entire season. Last time we saw her, she was in the bottom of your buddy John Glover's basement. Surviving the nuclear war that was going on.
Yeah.
That was going to be the bargain. So they more or less come to this like friendly agreement, like, okay, we'll help each other and let's go do this. When Morgan sticks out his hand to shake, there's blue residue on his thumbs. It turns out that he more or less put some kind of poison in Strand's drink, and it shows it leaked. Strand obviously loses his mind, as he should.
Yeah.
Strand's justified in this. And he's ready to throw Morgan off the roof. But, like, this is the only part of the episode I really didn't like. Strand delayed too much.
Okay.
Like, he's kind of, like, building up the moment, and it's almost like that supervillain, like, I'm going to tell you my entire game plan before I actually do it. So, at this point, Grace winds up calling Strand and saying, I can get rid of the walker issue you have with the contaminations. Like, you know, we can take care of all this. But the deal is you let Morgan live. And Strand goes, well, if you do that, you and the child are living here. He's gone.
Yeah.
She agrees.
Oh.
She has to. Well, because it's more or less like she's willing to do anything to save Morgan. So Morgan is now kicked out of said group.
Uh-oh.
So he's on his own. He's now wandering, you know, on the open.
Sure.
He bumps into some old friends.
Uh-huh.
He runs into Dwight and Sherry.
Oh, okay.
So now I don't know if he's officially part of their group, the Dark Riders, or I believe whatever their little faction is.
Sure.
So sure enough, Dwight's like, you're not going to believe what's going on. And they wind up taking Morgan to a camp. And Morgan comes walking out, and the leader basically comes up to him, and Morgan's like, what can I do? And and reveals the mask. It's Alicia.
Oh.
So we haven't seen her since last season, and she's now leading this group, and she's basically breaking down about how she was freed from the bunker, and she's now, has her own camp, and she's not connected to anybody. And she's more or less just trying to figure out where she's going to go from here. Ultimately, there's going to be a confrontation with Strand.
I would say so.
Like, that's coming now. So, unfortunately, though, they do get attacked. And this is one of the things I give kudos to the Walking Dead or Fear the Walking Dead writers. And I know one of them is actually a subscriber to the podcast, so shout out to you, Nick. This is one of the more interesting ways that they're adapting to this universe that they're in. Because this camp, all of a sudden, is having walkers come up to them. And Morgan notices something weird. And he's screaming at everybody, stop shooting, don't shoot, don't shoot, don't shoot. Sure enough, the camp fires and blows them all away. They kind of explode. And red cloud comes out of them. Like a radioactive cloud. So more or less, it was an initial weapon used against them. So now they have to go run because now they're going to be infected from the radioactivity from these zombies. Fade to black. Wow. A lot was going on this episode.
I would say so.
Yeah, like I say, this really had a little bit of a payoff between Morgan and Strand. More so than we've had thus far. Except, like I say, their dynamic is so odd. Because, like I say, it's like Professor X and Magneto to a degree.
Sure.
Like, they really don't like each other, but when they have to work together, they do. And Strand, it's almost like he has to prove himself to Morgan, which is so weird. Like it's hard to describe, but he can't be happy in his own skin. And even when at the end of the episode, after he's made his decision, he gets the painting, which he threw off the roof again too. Strand's got this weird thing about throwing stuff off roofs.
I'd say so.
Just go with it. And he brings the painting back in, and it's all stepped on and torn. And his assistant there is like, do you want another one to be made for you? He goes, no, it's perfect. Leave it up on the wall. And you can just see how the foundation is cracked with Strand, that he is basically gone on this mantra of like, my instincts have gotten me through this far. Everything I've chosen to do has worked. I'm the reason we're surviving. It's me, me, me. And it's so just well done. Like I can't scream about how much Coleman Domingo is just absolutely crushing this role. And especially being the major antagonist, he's just doing so much good work on the show. It's not even funny. Him and Lenny James, I was expecting more from their battle. And especially like when he had the chance to throw him off the roof, he didn't. It was like his guys were ready to do it, and they just delayed after they had the standoff in the elevator.
Yeah.
Like after the poison was revealed. It is a very interesting episode, to say the least. And it's like I say, if you're looking for something different in the Walking Dead universe, give Fear a shot. It's the best one they've done thus far. Next week, though, mid-season finale time. So the episode is titled Padre, so you know I'm going to be covering that. But definitely I want to interact with some people about the portrait. And like I said, shout out to our guy, Nick Benadrone. He is a writer for this episode, actually, of Fear the Walking Dead.
Okay.
And he does follow the show. So definitely shout out to you, Nick. We'll be talking a little off-air about this as well. Because, like I said, very strong episode. Thought they just telegraphed a little too much about Strand dealing with Morgan, though. But I can stomach that. That's a perfectly excusable ending to a great episode. That all being said, Pat, the music you heard on this episode, though, of the ODPH is that of Shout Out the Robots. They are fantastic people. If I want to find out more about them, where do I go?
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. You swing on over to the music section at ODPHpodcast.com. You check out everything going on with them, everything going on with Floodlands, everything going on with Second Suitor, Tom Jolo, Brian Wolf, who is back to streaming on Wednesday nights.
Hey.
So if you're looking for some great music during the holiday season, go check every group that we have on the music section out. Go support them. They are fantastic people. Tell them we sent you. They'll say thank you, and they'll let us know. And you know what? We thank you for doing that, too. Also, check out Parlay Points. Like I said, new comics blogs up. So you want to see Once in Future, number 22, you go there. You want to hear about Hocus, and all the great books that we have up there, too. I'll definitely shout out to the creative team there because, you know, they're going to be coming on the podcast sooner than later in 2022. You can find all your comic reviews right there. You can check out the wrestling blog, which I'm going to try sneaking out one before War Games this Saturday because we got a lot of wrestling to watch this
Before
week.
what on Sunday?
War Games!
Thank you.
We got a lot going on in the blog section, so you definitely want to make sure you're following, subscribing to that. Let me know what you're thinking. If you want something to get covered, maybe we'll take a step back and do it this week. I don't know. We're going to have to see how it plays out. Plus, Mondays with Dre I know we got a new one coming sooner than later, too. Also, while you're on the website, definitely go check out the classified section, which has friends of the show. So if you're looking for some great businesses to support during the holiday season, right there you go. Tell them the ODPH sent you. We also have organizational links supporting Black Lives Matter, all the amazing pod groups we are in via their Podchaser pages, because I say it once, I say it 1,000 times. If you claim you're in a group on Twitter of podcasts, and your group is not represented on Podchaser, you're not in a group. And just wait till Good Pods gets on there, because I got a feeling they're going to get on there soon. And if you're not listening on Good Pods yet and you want to support any podcast, make it a point to do it today. We're on there, so is a lot of our friends, and they are doing great things for the independent podcast community. So definitely, we want to shout out to the Inner Circle, shout out to the Apocalypse, and of course, shout out to 607 Podcast and our good friends over at 8122 Productions, doing big things on their Patreon as well. All of that and so much more, Pad, is at odphpodcast.com. That's all I got for this week. So for the one only Padawan J.
Thank you.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. See you next time.
The evidence is burned. Magnets to the tape. The darkness has crept up to cover your face. Sliding backwards into stars and nothing collapses into place. So we try to keep our heads above the water, but it gets so hard to breathe out here. Always falling backward, never find our feet. What the hell are we doing? Empty cars on empty streets. Radio static bouncing around and around and around and around in our defeat. So we say, outside, where the last been broken voices in the sky. Drowning our voices, collapse of the sound, lost and forever, waiting to be found. We're up in the clouds and there's no coming down. We're lost in the crowd, there's no one around. The Iraqi boys are calling, the chicken man looks thin, hiding in the rafters, swallowing the sin. A little deviation from the little task at hand.